Listen, y'all, we got a special treat. Those of you that are worshiping with us online, wherever you are around the world, over 50 countries hanging with us, we're always excited to have you joining us. This man needs no introduction. I'm going to get out of the way and turn the mic over. He is one of the most notable figures this century. One of the most profound givers you will ever know. I've watched him sacrifice behind the scenes, giving his time, his talent, his life, his mind. I've watched him take phone calls from presidents around the world and give advice. I watched him in Africa when all of the presidents come together to talk about becoming the United States of Africa at the African Union, and watching presidents from all across the world clamoring for his advice, for his wisdom, for his insight. I've watched him rush to hospitals for kids who've gotten shot or family members who were disgusted or discouraged. I've watched him speak and minister to people from Asia who had hostages within their family, looking for him to rescue them as he did in Kosovo, and so many other things that he does that the media will never report. You'll never see it on social media. You'll never see it on the news. All of the good that he does, all of the good that he gives that you might never hear about. He is one of the greatest men ever to breathe the breath of life. He will share God's word with us this morning. I wish that you would stand on your feet and help me welcome home the legendary leader himself, the freedom fighter himself, Chairman and CEO of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Y'all help me welcome him home. This is his home church, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson.
Good morning, church. God will take care of you. Let us pray. Search our hearts. You know our ways. Touch us for only you can touch. We will have been touched. If there be anything within us that should not be, any hatred or jealousy or malice or fear, take it out right now and make us fit for the fight. Put your arms of love around us and we'll truly be loved. But not just for ourselves, for our neighbors, for our church, for our family. With Pastor Jenkins and Sister Jenkins and Reverend Sister Evans, Ludella, and those who sow the seed that's now become a farm of many fruits. They're being with us today who's hurting, loved one hurt, shot in some way. Bless Rainbow Push, our efforts to do justice and do the right thing for the right reasons by thy people. We know you'll take care of us. Nothing is too hard for you, and your grace is sufficient. Amen. I am delighted to be home today, to be with Reverend Evans in a special way. I'll tell a story so often, it's meeting me in the streets now. I was in one Sunday morning, Reverend Hardy and I were on our way to church looking for a church. And we heard Reverend Evans saying, "I must tell Jesus." Charles Walker's sister's here. Charles was on the piano, organ rather. And Freddie Young was on the piano. Milton Bronson was directing, and Billy Jones was his assistant. Ludella was shouting. Took his shoes off and kept on shouting. What a glorious decision. We made it, turned around and came back here looking for fellowship. It was different then. It was about 1 o'clock. We got back, Reverend Evans was getting up about 1:15. Ain't that way no more, Reverend. We have about third service about that time now. But we're so blessed to have had Reverend Evans and to have him Don't forget, this church, Janice, stood as a symbol of shame for 7 years. We were next door when Reverend Evans embraced Dr. King. The church is on the way up. He was the Ministers' Conference president, hot on the revival trail, hot as a singer, big choir. They said if he let Reverend Dr. King come in this church, he couldn't find money in this city. For 7 years, he didn't. His minister friends laughed at him. "You're a fool, Clay, mess around with Martin Luther King." He said, "Well, fool I am. I stand with him. I'm not backing down." And a minister got on TV and had a press conference. Said Dr. King was a damn fool and should leave Chicago. He was not welcome here. And many people closed doors, church doors, in Dr. King's face, wouldn't let him come in the pulpit. But he stood in the fellowship pulpit. All that Reverend Evans has done, he made way for the prophet. And I came out of that protection. That which I do today as of July 5th, 1965, when I met Reverend Evans, life has not been the same for me. It was a success for Dr. King, and we must never, ever forget the good Reverend Evans has done, is doing, going to do. A big hand for Reverend Evans one more time. Show your love for our pastor. I want to thank Pastor Jenkins for having the good judgment to honor Reverend Evans. I've seen young ministers try to impose their talent on the tradition and not extend it. I've seen guys come in and take the previous ministers' pictures off the wall and all such foolishness as that. Reverend Evans has more security now at Fellowship than he had when he was the pastor. Reverend Jenkins has been a solid, integrous force. Stand up, Reverend Jenkins. Give it up for Reverend Jenkins. Show your appreciation. The way Reverend Jenkins relates to Reverend Evans is the talk of the country. Reverend Evans reached out and saw in Reverend Jenkins something special. And Reverend Jenkins knows there's something special in Reverend Evans. Reverend Evans is on a solid salary and benefit plan and travel to what he wants because he is still the godfather of fellowship. And Reverend Jenkins, every time he helps Reverend Evans, he helps himself. Jenkins, we thank you for that, especially. We have some of our friends today from around the country, from the Rainbow Coalition, from Atlanta, Georgia, and Greenville, South Carolina, and Greenville, and New York. And y'all get up. Bishop Steve, Axel, give me. Our convention is this week. We began yesterday talking a lot about Charleston and the need for urban policy and the need to teach our children how to do apps. And we opened up our tech center yesterday, teaching our children how to do apps and codes and how to do financial literacy, stock market game. We want 1,000 churches to put in these centers. We'll produce 100,000 youth a year who'll be going to technology and rather than going to jail. That's our plan. And today we have about 500 jobs lined up for the day at noontime. And we, this afternoon, a big rally moving between the coalition, blacks and browns coming together. Our language is different, our message is the same. We come to fellowship to honor Reverend Evans in Ludella, 1985. Then there's reception for the African ambassadors at Rainbow Push tonight. Tomorrow is our women's luncheon. And women, please come to that luncheon tomorrow. Among other things, we're honoring some high exec sisters at Coca-Cola. Janice Mathis is in charge of that program. Honoring the First Lady of South Africa, Mrs. Zuma. She is with us. And the former First Lady of Pakistan, likewise, is with us. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll have the Silicon Valley people meeting with black college presidents on how to get kids from black colleges into this industry. well, if you will, on Tuesday, the ministers luncheon, 1,000 ministers getting together, led by Reverend Axel Adams, on getting tech centers in their churches. We're glad about that. I also want to say that on Wednesday, Reverend Evans will be honored at the Progressive Baptist Convention in Detroit, Michigan. At 2 o'clock, Reverend Evans and Reverend L.K. Kerr will be honored. So we want ministers to go to Reverend Evans' celebration on Wednesday, but stop by Push first. Say amen. Yeah. Give Reverend Evans one more. We're glad about it. Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate that. You get old, you just miss these signs. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. As our heart grieve over Little Rock 9, now to Charleston 9. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your path. Repeat, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. I want to talk a bit about men standing on the promises of God. To not trust God and not allow him to direct your path is a risky journey. A fundamental principle of religion is a self-commitment to the grace and truth of God. It requires us to recognize God as the unconditional controller over all one's comings and goings. Trust in the Lord means to rely on him, depend on him, have confidence in him. Trust in God means to regard him as the source of wisdom and power in all things. Trust with all your heart means with all your mind, with the full force of the mental faculties without reservation. The text emphasizes devotion to the Lord rather than piety and the limitations of piety. I want to ask you a few basic questions, I often do, to make sure we're on the same page as I distinguish piety from justice. If you know someone someone who has lost their home, raise your hand. The foreclosure. You know someone who lost their home, raise your hand real high. Hands down. You know someone who was behind in their rent, raise your hand. You have a relative in jail, raise your hand. A relative in jail. You know someone on drugs, raise your hand. Someone who's in student loan debt, raise your hand. You know someone who needs a job, raise your hand. Now, we focus a lot on church manners and piety and don't drink, don't smoke, don't talk loud on the bus. While piety is important, looking religious, it didn't get the Israelites out of Egypt. They had to march out. Repeat, God is not merely concerned about the condition within you, but the condition you're within. God is not merely concerned about the condition within you, but the condition you're in. To get God's promise, you must pass the trust test. I've seen a lot of this kind of religious chicanery. Highest form of worship is to raise your hands. That ain't true. That's not heavy lifting. You're just lifting your fingernails. A high form is lifting somebody up not lifting up your hands. Am I right about that? Heresy, wearing these diamond-studded gold crosses. It's a rugged cross, and it's full of blood and risk and sacrifice. God always makes big promises and gives big assignments. It challenges the size of your faith. Joshua and Caleb overcame the odds because they passed the trust test. A majority of leaders saw the giants and thought the giants were bigger than God's promise. They gave a report that you couldn't win because there were giants in the land. David defeated Goliath because he passed the trust test. In Egypt, most didn't want to take the test. I have a strong suspicion that Moses led a minority group out of Egypt. In the case of Moses, most of them didn't leave. They were complaining, even those who got across. In the case of Joshua and Caleb, most lost their faith. So most leaders lost their faith. It was the minority report that prevailed. God delivers on his promise, but you have to follow his instructions. Fathers, it's Father's Day. The easiest part is to plant the seed. You got to cultivate the seed, remove the worms, and cut away the wild flowers. Am I right about that? Say, God delivers on his promise. Men, but you must follow his instructions. It's not always a straight line between the promise and the delivery. The promise is so big that you may have to go through valleys and shadows of death to pick up the promise. But the black father takes on even a different meaning still. The black father is known lynching. After slavery, there were 4,000 black men who were lynched. They were after church celebrations. Sometimes they would have a lynching party at church and would dismiss church and go out and go to the lynching party, men with their straw hats, women with their bonnets, and kids holding their parents' hand, watching black men hang from trees called strange fruit. No one knows the trouble we've seen. We could not give our children our name. We don't know what our name was. It wasn't Williams and Jackson, Evans. That was the name we were permitted to have. We were identified by these names. We weren't able to file a lawsuit. No lynch mob was ever indicted. Limited by segregation. We could not vote. We could not serve on juries. We couldn't borrow money from the bank. Somebody saying, nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody but the Lord and me. Drafted in the military. Used as cannon fodder. My father to sit behind Nazi POWs on America's military base on America's soil. Closed housing. Black women became heads of households during slavery because black women was often guinea pigs for white men's stuff. Thus Strom Thurmond, thus our complexion and our hair texture. Yet no white man was ever charged for rape because she was his property. Sometimes white men did not trust men around the house. So women had those jobs too. That's when the Bible called them eunuchs. You could trust a eunuch to be in the house of the Pharaoh. And so women it became matriarchs. So the black church was the incubator. So the black church was the incubator that enabled us to hold on, to have the substance we hope for, the evidence of things we had not seen. Athletics is where we succeeded somewhat, Pastor Jenkins, because the player in the field was even. Jack Johnson could beat Jeffries, and he beat Jeffrey. There were riots after the fight. Joe Louis beat Max Mellon, the German giant. Muhammad Ali won, and on the matter of principle wouldn't go to war. Jackie Robinson won. Jim Brown won. Magic Johnson, Michael Johnson, and Jesse Owens and Michael Jordan, they won. So whenever The playing field is even, and the rules are public, and the goals are clear, and the referee is fair. Black men can win. So when black men can't get access to education, or a job, or a bank loan, the playing field is not even. There's nothing wrong with us. There's something wrong with the condition we're in. If you make up some batter and you pour them into a pan shaped like animal cookies, you look like the elephant or you look like the giraffe. So you look like the pan you're baked in. So we're baked in a pan that's limited. We look limited. So there's nothing wrong with us. We're the same dough the elephant made out of. God is not merely concerned about the condition within us, but the condition we're in. And the reason I keep repeating that is that Rosa Parks didn't go out the back of the bus because she left prayer meeting. She got out the back of the bus because she helped lead a boycott. We speak of a God of justice, but we honor a God of piety. How are you pious? Because they don't drink and they don't smoke and they do all the right things and they make all the prayer meetings on time. That is not how you change the situation. Fannie Lou Hamer beaten by black prisoners, unconscious. They told the black man, either you beat her or we beat you to death. They beat her. That's why she couldn't make the march on Washington. She was praying while being whipped. Rosa Parks prayed as she went to jail. God of justice. Medgar was killed. Moses marched with armies chasing him. The Voting Rights Act, we had to bleed and die. Many of you don't vote because you inherited, you didn't earn it. Mandela, 27 years in jail, trusting God. He had to go through the jail to get to the promise. So every now and then, you have to go through the jail or the valley and the shadow or the danger, take the risk, make the sacrifice to get to the promise. Reverend Pinckney in South Carolina, known as family almost all of his life, can get to heaven now, he can say, though you slay me, yet will I trust you. Now he lays dead with more power than the living. The president has to go and visit him now. Candidates from both parties have to visit him now. Romney is saying, take the Confederate flag down now. Pinckney is in heaven. Say, Pinckney is in heaven assembling his trust credentials while his killer is in jail on his way to hell. Now, there'll be an attempt to embrace Pinckney now. All kind of rascals will come running. We love him as a martyr, but rejected him as a martyr. We love him as a great silent dead man. We love him at the graveyard. But not as a legislator or a preacher. We must protect the integrity of his march and not fall for the goofiness of his martyrdom. South Carolina. Same state. Young white woman drove her 2 babies in the water. Drowned them. So a black man did it who didn't even exist. They went looking for an imaginary black man. South Carolina doesn't have a hate bill. South Carolina, 1/4 of the state is in poverty. Women can't get mammograms. Men cannot get prostate examinations. Babies cannot get medicine. The government turns back $10 billion in Medicaid money because it might help the poor. They want money for prisons and military bases, but not for the poor. South Carolina. Walter Scott shot down in cold blood by a policeman 6 months ago in South Carolina. Marching to end the jail industrial complex. State's 25% black, prison 75% black. 25% of those are leased out $4 an hour, $2 for the rent for the jail cell, and $2 for uniforms. South Carolina. The killer and his fans are limited to crucifixion power. So the killer and his fans are limited to crucifixion. They have power. Now, they raised $900,000 for him already. He has $1 million bond. They raised $900,000 for him already, which means he has a fan club. He is still fighting the civil war. So man and his allies have crucifixion power, but God has resurrection power. When they killed him last week, he was just another minority legend. Now they're calling Pinckney's name in Chinese today. They're calling his name today in Japanese and in French. Resurrect him. When he lays in the casket, the president looks down and pays homage from around the world. His name, honor and suffering, is redemptive. There's power in the blood of the innocent. Trust in God in all your ways. God will direct your path. No grave can hold your body down. No lie can live forever. Say no good thing we withheld from those who love the Lord and call according to his purpose. Jails can't contain you. Bullets can't kill you. Lies can't distract you if you trust him and take the risk. But between promises and delivery, there's always challenges. God gives big assignments. It's big assignments and big risk and big rewards. Everybody wants to write the vote, but nobody wants to go to Selma except to look at the movie. Thus, if you trust God, acknowledge him in all your ways, he will do heavy lifting. Reverend Pinckney will line state at the Capitol in Columbia Wednesday. All the right wingers will have to stand and take their hats off. A man who's on his way to heaven. The funeral will be held not at the church in Charleston, but at the stadium. No church can hold his body, his resurrected body. The funeral will have more coverage than the NBA playoff games. Ralph killed him, but God resurrected him. Easter is not about bunnies and rabbits. It's about getting up for real. If men have the capacity to kill, God maintains the power to resurrect. We trust God, little results a little. Trust God in all your ways, and there's nothing in the heavens be denied to you. So men, if you want better schools, the reason I ask, so if you want better schools, fight for them. You want to be a man, do manly things. You can't just walk up by a vacant lot in a torn down house and start looking Sanctuary mornings and start reading Bible scriptures to an empty lot. Stand. The bank won't lend you money. March. Want to stop the flow of drugs? Stand. Want to reduce student loan debt? Stand. Want a job? Fight for it. You fight in Iraq, fight at home. Stand. When men stand, little boys get little and you look bigger. Say stand. Beyond flesh and blood, there are these powers and these principalities, and yet do your best. And if your best ain't good enough, you just stand. The Lord is our light and our salvation. Whom shall we fear? The Lord is the strength of our lives. Though you slay me, yet will I trust you. When my worst fears come upon me, I still trust you. I know you live because you live within my soul. I know it's dark, but the morning cometh. It's morning time. The morning cometh. I hurt sometime, but I cry sometime. But weeping may endure for a night. Hold on. Hold out. Joy cometh in the morning. Everything we desire in our heart, say God will deliver on his promise. He'll deliver a decent job. He'll deliver education for your children. He'll deliver peace in your house. He'll deliver security on your street, but you got to trust him and say, I will trust in the Lord until I die. I will stay on the battlefield until I die. Weeping may endure, but I'll hold on. I'll hold out. And if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from the wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. I'll hear from heaven. God will heal. God will deliver. God will lift me up the higher ground. God will. Nothing is too hard for God. I fall down. I get up again. I get up again because the ground is no place for a champion. And so I rise. I rise without fear. I rise. Perfect love cast out fear. I rise. I stand. Standing on his promises. Standing on his promises. God bless.